Did you know that the first Filipinos to proudly call themselves Pinoy were not even in the Philippines? They were thousands of miles away fighting discrimination in America. Unknown to most Filipinos today, the word Pinoy, an identity that millions of Filipinos wear with pride, did not even originate in the islands we now call the Philippines. It was born far from home, in a foreign land filled with hardship and racism. The term emerged in the United States among Filipino immigrants who faced harsh conditions and systemic discrimination. Pinoy was not coined by folks back at home, but by those who had left the motherland. So how did a term, born out of struggle thousands of miles away, evolve into a powerful symbol and a source of pride for millions of Filipinos around the world? Let's dig deeper and find out. Mabuhay, or in Kapampangan, luwid kayo. Welcome to my channel, it's me Kirby Araullo, your friendly Pinoy historian. And in today's video, we're diving deep into the fascinating history and evolution of the word Pinoy. But before we get too deep into it, today's video is not about the debates on whether or not we should call ourselves Filipino, a term rooted in colonialism. Because that's another complicated topic for another day. Instead, today we're focusing on the roots and the evolution of the word Pinoy and how it has shaped our people's identity over time. So without further ado, let's begin. The story begins in the early 20th century, in the aftermath of the Filipino-American War. The war left the Philippines devastated, with over 1 million lives lost and widespread destruction. Entire communities were left in ruin, with limited opportunities for those who survived. Between 1906 and the 1930s, tens of thousands of Filipinos migrated to the US, particularly in Hawaii and California. During this time, the Philippines was still under American colonial rule, so these laborers were technically US nationals, but that didn't mean that they were seen or treated as equals. These Filipino workers faced intense racism, backbreaking labor in harsh environments, and lived in extremely poor conditions. They were collectively known as the Manongs, an Ilocano term meaning older brother, which became a respectful way to refer to this first wave of Filipino migrant workers who laid the foundations for future Filipino communities in the United States. The Manongs were mostly young single men working in agriculture, canneries, and fish processing, enduring low wages and brutal working conditions. Despite these hardships, they carved out spaces for themselves in places like California's Central Valley and Hawaii's plantations, building tight-knit communities for mutual support. The Manongs themselves began using the term Pinoy, an informal, almost affectionate contraction of Filipino or Pilipino. In fact, the oy suffix follows a familiar pattern in the many languages of the Philippines, where it is often used as a casual nickname or a term of endearment, like Kaloy for Carlos, Beloy for Isabelo, Manoy for Manuel, and many more. It is also worth noting that while Pinoy might sound masculine, in practice, it is used inclusively. In Philippine languages, Pinoy refers to all Filipinos, reflecting the gender-neutral and inclusive nature of our native languages. Now, according to the linguist Christopher Sundita, who has extensively researched Philippine languages, the earliest known documentation of the word Pinoy dates back to the 1920s. In a 1924 article in the magazine called The Philippine Republic, Dr. J. Juliano, a faculty member at a school in Chicago, wrote, "What should a Pinoy do if he is addressed as a Chinese or a Jap?" This highlights how Filipinos in the US were already identifying themselves with the term Pinoy in response to their experiences of discrimination and racism. According to the late historian, Dr. Don Boholano Mabalon, whose extensive work on Filipino communities in America has shed light on their experiences, these early immigrants, our beloved Manongs, used Pinoy as a way to identify themselves in a foreign land, to feel a sense of belonging, even when the outside world made them feel anything but welcome. But here's where things get complicated. While Pinoy was a self-identifier, it was not necessarily a term of pride in its early days. For many, it reflected the harsh reality of being Filipino in the US, a reality shaped by racism and exploitation. Filipinos, along with other Asian migrants, were often dehumanized and categorized as cheap labor, working long hours in scorching hot fields, canneries, and factories for minimal wages while facing racial violence. In California and Hawaii, many Filipinos lived in segregated housing. They were excluded from social institutions and were subjected to to violent attacks during the bloody race riots of the 1920s and the 1930s. But while Pinoy was sometimes used in a discriminatory and negative way, it also became a term of endearment within the community, carrying both the weight of marginalization and solidarity in a foreign land. But the story does not end there. In fact, what comes next is truly inspiring and empowering. Pinoy, a term born from hardship, was eventually reclaimed with pride. The Manongs, including labor leaders like Manong Larry Itliong and Manong Philip Vera Cruz, led historic movements such as the multi-ethnic Delano Grape Strikes in 1965. Marking a key moment in American labor history and the larger struggle for civil rights in the United States. Manong Larry and his fellow Manongs united Filipino and Mexican farm workers, showcasing the power of cross-cultural solidarity in the fight for workers' rights and dignity, challenging systemic exploitation and inequalities faced by workers of color. These efforts by the Manongs not only uplifted Filipino farm workers, but also helped build momentum for labor reforms that would benefit all workers across America. By the 1970s, the word Pinoy had made its way back to the Philippines, thanks in part to pop culture. One key moment was the rise of Pinoy rock, a movement that fused Filipino themes with Western rock music. Bands like Juan de la Cruz brought the term into the mainstream, and what had once been a term of struggle in the diaspora evolved into a rallying cry for Filipino pride and identity. Now, over the decades, Pinoy and its female equivalent Pinay evolved into a powerful symbol of Filipino pop culture. In fact, we see it everywhere today, from popular TV shows like Pinoy Big Brother, channels like GMA Pinoy TV, to iconic songs like Tayo'y Mga Pinoy by Francis Magalona, and Noipi by Bamboo. Both of which celebrate Filipino identity and pride. And on social media, hashtags like Pinoy Pride are used by Filipinos worldwide to express love for their culture, connecting communities from different parts of the globe. Pinoy has evolved alongside the Filipino identity itself, reflecting the adaptability and the global presence of Filipinos today. What is fascinating is the word Pinoy bridges the gap between Filipinos in the Philippines and those in the diaspora. For Filipinos abroad, it is a reminder of their roots, and for those in the motherland, it is a nod to the global influence of Filipino culture. From TV shows to music, and from social media to grassroots organizations, Pinoy has come full circle, connecting communities that might seem divided at first glance. Now fast forward to the present day, in the age of social media. From Facebook to Twitter and Reddit, debates on who is considered truly Filipino have become more heated. For example, some Filipinos in the Philippines argue that Filipino-Americans raised or born in the US are not real Filipinos due to cultural differences, language barriers, and the perception of being too Americanized. On the flip side, Filipino-Americans may feel disconnected from the motherland, yet still embrace their Filipino identity, even if their experiences differ from those raised in the Philippines. And if we think about it, at the heart of this debate is a deeper question. What truly defines a Filipino? Is it where you were born, the language you speak, or the traditions you follow? But despite these debates, Pinoy continues to serve as a symbol of shared identity and resilience for Filipinos everywhere. It transcends geography, uniting Filipinos across the globe, whether they're in Manila or Los Angeles, in Cebu or Dubai, in Hong Kong, or sailing across the ocean. Indeed, Pinoy is generally used in a gender-neutral and inclusive way to refer to Filipinos collectively, while Pinay specifically refers to women. This reflects the inherent inclusivity of native Philippine languages, which are naturally gender-neutral. Over time, Pinoy has come to represent all Filipinos, regardless of gender or background. And this brings us to another big question. Are Filipino-Americans really Filipinos? And we'll dive deeper into this complex topic in the next video, so make sure to stay tuned in the coming days. But for now, let's talk about the big picture. Despite these debates, there's one thing that we can all all agree on. There's far more that unites us than divides us. Whether we are dealing with colonial legacies, corruption in the government, the challenges of migration, or the fight to preserve our cultures and languages, these struggles are interconnected. Filipinos may speak different languages or celebrate different traditions depending on where they live or their environment. But the essence of being Filipino, of being Pinoy, our values of community, family, and resilience remains the same. And Pinoy embodies that spirit. It reminds us that no matter where we are part of a shared history, culture, struggles, and a deep sense of belonging. So what does Pinoy even mean today? For many, Pinoy is a marker of identity, one that speaks to the experiences of Filipinos across the globe. It is a word that connects the Filipino nurse in Saudi Arabia to the Filipino artist in California. It is a bridge between the Filipino-American who has never been to the Philippines or the overseas Filipino worker who sends remittances back home every month. Because Pinoy is not just about where you were born or what language you speak. It is about the values that unites us. So whether you grew up in Pampanga or New York City, in Mindanao or Canada, you're part of a shared history and a global Filipino community. As we wrap up, it is important to remember that the Filipino identity is not fixed. It is constantly evolving. And while debates about who is more Filipino will continue, the historic roots and evolution of the term Pinoy serve as a reminder that our identities are more fluid and more interconnected than we sometimes realize. So whether you identify as Pinoy or Pinay, as Filipino or Filipina or Filipinx, let us learn from the wisdom of our ancestors. Let us celebrate what makes us unique while remembering our common struggles and our shared interwoven roots. After all, we are all part of the same story, and Pinoy, an identity born in the diaspora and embraced worldwide, shows us just how deep our roots are. Because the word Pinoy is more than just a nickname. It is a symbol of our collective history. From Filipino laborers, our manongs who embrace and reclaim Pinoy as their own, to Filipinos around the world today, it has evolved into a term that unites our people across the globe. From the Philippines to America and beyond, Pinoy embodies the strength and the unity that defines our people, no matter where we are in the world. So the next time you hear the word Pinoy, remember that it carries the stories of all Filipinos, past and present. It's a reminder that while our experiences and backgrounds might differ, we are all part of the same journey. A reminder that we are all connected by a shared history, by the struggles and the victories of our diverse yet interwoven people, with roots deeper than the ocean. Okay, now I'd love to hear from you. How do you personally connect with the term Pinoy? What does Pinoy or Pinay mean to you? Let me know in the comments below. And if you like this video or learned a thing or two, don't forget to subscribe to my channel and hit the bell icon so you don't miss out on future videos about our people's history, culture, and everything in between. And if you would like to support my channel and my research, please consider becoming a patron on Patreon or a member of my YouTube channel. And don't forget to check out my books, coloring books, ebooks, and merch on the fascinating history and culture of the Philippines and Southeast Asia. Check out the links below to order your copies today. And that is it for me today, but before we wrap up today's video, I want to take this moment to say Salamat, a heartfelt thank you to all of you, to everyone who's been part of my channel. You know, from patrons to subscribers and viewers like you, your love and support throughout these 12 years has meant the world to me. Kaya naman maraming salamat po, orin Kapampangan dakal pong salamat kay Akongan, orin bahasasog magsukultud kay mo, and iniloko agyamanaklaunay. And one more thing before I go, I want to give a special shout out to my friends at the Filipino Story. They're doing an amazing work celebrating Filipino culture and history. In fact, we've got a collab coming soon, so check out their channel and stay tuned. See you next time where Tagalog kita gets and Kapampangan, Mikitix, and in Binisaya, kita aita.